let's talk load order. This is Xbox, so we don't have to worry about anything like SFSE, the script extender, the address library, any of that kind of stuff for the benefit of this conversation. Obviously, for my Steam game, I would like to have all of that stuff. But on Xbox, that stuff does not exist, so it's not really important. So I want to talk about, a load order with maybe 20 mods here, it looks like, and why I personally assembled it the way that I did. What my conception of that is, because I think a lot of people who are new to Bethesda games in general, or people who are new to modding Starfield or that type of thing, people who are coming in off the PlayStation, a lot of players, they haven't done mods. My friend Ren hasn't done a lot of mods, and I think people see a big menu and they're like, oh wow, I could pick this and I could pick this and I could pick this, and yes and no, right? I mean, sure, you can go through and you can find all the things you want and you can cram it in there and try to make it work. But this is the reason why when streamers are playing and they're running 5-6 mods or 500 mods or whatever, and the game is crashing over and over again, and people in the chat are saying things like, yep, Bethesda needs more time to cook. Just a patch or two and this should be all working just fine. And I'm over here banging on my monitor going, no, that's not accurate. Not always anyway, right? Because a lot of times it's something as simple as just having incompatible mods, activated and running in your save. Or incompatible mods that don't have a patch, that aren't properly patched. Or mods that are compatible but maybe in a load order that's kind of funky. So Starfield does this thing on the Xbox anyway, and I assume they do it on the PlayStation, where in the description it'll say something like, this is load order neutral. And what that means is it's not a full plugin. It's an ESL plugin, as we would call it in the Fallout universe or the Skyrim universe. I'm not sure whether that even applies here, but it's a light plugin. And it doesn't really matter, like a lot of the script extender stuff doesn't really occupy a plugin slot, and you can't really sort it in a way that is comprehensible if you're used to the old system with regular plugins. So let's skip all that shit, because that's like, the next class, folks. And let's just talk about the very, very basics from top to bottom. When you load a mod in or a creation, you're putting something in a game that changes some variables, some entries in a table that represent, maybe textures or colors, or that add new NPCs, or that add new equipment or pieces of furniture. And when you put that in and it's all by itself, it will change the relevant data in your vanilla game and load in that way so that your game displays this modded version of Starfield. And so when you build, you want to build with that in mind, because everything you load beneath that mod that in any way affects that creation or any of the parts that are changed by that will be superseded by the mod below it. Okay? And often that's fine. There's no big deal there. A lot of mods don't really fight with each other over the same exact entries in the same exact tables. But some do, and you want to know that if you're, say for example, running a mod, I'm just spitballing here, that adds even more lines for Sarah, okay? But you also want to run a mod that gives Sarah a whole new punk rock look with a pink mohawk and a nose ring and all kinds of stuff. Generally speaking, and it may not matter, but we won't get into that. Generally speaking, you're going to run the one that changes her dialogue and her other things, and then below that you're going to apply the skin that goes over it. So the only thing you're passing through is anything unrelated to that looks, and that's still carrying through. And then the looks are superseding anything that might incidentally be in the other Sarah mod that represents her and her vanilla self with her outfits and her haircut and all of that stuff. This is just an example. It doesn't really apply to Sarah or Sarah mods, but you get the general idea of what I'm saying. So all the way at the top of my load order here, I have the Daemog, which is a Bethesda creation. I'm not sure which, if it's an internal thing or if it's external verified creator that did it for them, in the way that like Hell's Gate was done by King Gath but is sold as a Bethesda creation. But either way, it doesn't matter. It modifies the base Rev 4 ground vehicle, and it gives you this enclosed vehicle that has a weapon on top. Whatever I add that modifies vehicles, if it modifies the Daemog, if it adds a third set of tires or whatever, it's going to sit below this, because this is the base, and then anything that modifies this particular creation will be below it. I don't have anything like that, but that's what it's all about. So these two at the top, the Daemog and the modular explosive delivery system, the drone attack weapons, both of these creations are going to run fairly uniquely and do unique things that really won't be affected too much by what goes below it. All right? Same goes for the Perfect Recipe, which is another Bethesda creation. Kind of a talking mod, some story, some pathos, not a lot of fighting, but it's another mod that features characters in Aquila City doing things and interacting with the player. And if I, for example, use a mod that changes the looks of people in Aquila City and makes them wear, I don't know, X2357 outfits, it won't affect this mod at all if I put that mod above a Perfect Recipe, because a Perfect Recipe will supersede it. But if I put it below a Perfect Recipe, the bartender might be wearing something from X's mod, which gives the Path of Solomon outfits and whatnot to the local characters. Probably with a patch. I think you have to dig those things out of a box and hand them to people directly. But again, just an example. Same thing goes with that Hell's Gate here. At Hell's Gate, Bethesda mod, it's a separate dungeon, a separate quest. It triggers through a radio thing. Not a lot going on there. And you'll see a pattern forming here. This is Redgrave. It's by the Milk Artist. It's a separate plugin. It has its own world space that's been built out. It has its own characters, its own stories. Kodos Crater. Now we're getting down to things that I want to be able to affect anything above them, but also probably won't need to be changed too much by anything below it unless it is designed to change that thing. So we have Xenomaster. Because Xenomaster is here, it can automatically detect that you have At Hell's Gate installed, and you're now able to use Xenomaster to tame the creatures from At Hell's Gate. Because Kodos Crater is here, I haven't played it yet, but I am playing it because I've been enjoying Redgrave, so I added it to my load order. Xenomaster, if you run into any Xenos that are unique to this, it will allow you to tame those, or it should anyway, unless it needs a special patch. I don't want to get into that. Ghost Rider 231 has been removing patches and incorporating base functionality into his release for Xenomaster. So let's go on the assumption that, at least for what I have right now, I don't need any patches to make them work with that. They're going to detect at Hell's Gate, and they're going to allow me to tame demons with my Xenomaster CCDs and tools. Now, the Xeno Ambassador requires Xenomaster in order to run, because it gives you Tommy. So I put it below Xenomaster because it directly modifies Xenomaster. Dorgan, Ironside Intergalactic Hollow Devil's Kit, again, has a master file, which is Xenomaster, and it requires Xenomaster in order to make any sense whatsoever with what you find in his crates. And so therefore it goes below Xenomaster. The ASC Deimos is ship parts, all right? Bard's NPC names for all affects the naming of various characters from the settled systems in their various outposts and settlements, and tries to give them logical names that fit along with that. Starfield Crowd Overhaul changes the way some of those characters look, but I want it to, without having to create a patch, I want it to be able to pass through the information from Bard's mod and actually name these unique looking characters that are the substitutes for the vanilla characters in the settlements within the settled system. Starfield Crowd Faces is a direct extension, not a patch, but an extension of Starfield Crowd Overhaul, both by Zone 79, and it modifies Starfield Crowd Overhaul and requires it as a master. So it has to go below the master mod. Neon Entertainer's outfit gives a new look to those ridiculous neon outfits. Don't at me. I'm going to put it there because it makes sense for me to put it there. EIT Clothiers Plus Vanilla Femme Body has both male and female morphs for each one of the outfits that it adds, and it adds a shit ton of gloves and jackets and all the stuff you see Miria and I wearing tonight. I'm putting it here because it makes sense for it to be here and to modify what comes before it, but it also fits in with the general theme of where I'm at in my load order. Next from there, in this particular load order, I moved into Tailored Spaces, which gives me a couple hundred unique models and textures for those models for decorating spaceships and settlements by Sweet Pea 704, the amazing Sweet Pea 704. And I'm putting it here. Your mileage may vary, and people who are smarter than I might have a different spot for this, but by my logic, this is going to add those decorator items in, and nothing before this is about decorating or settlements, so this is kind of the first spot for that. Likewise with Tank Girl's Galactic Harvest, which allows a whole new way of growing a lot of the flora that we find throughout the settled systems and using it for recipes and large-scale manufacturing for your outposts. If anything is going to group with that, it's going to be Tailored Spaces, and maybe I can even use some of the planner boxes and whatnot from Tailored Spaces. I don't know. I haven't actually built an outpost yet in my 2,000 hours of Starfield, but that's my logic. Now, I may run into problems and have to correct, but this is my logic that I'm using, building on the thing above it, one thing at a time. Bard's Outpost Recruitment Beacon adds functionality to my outposts. Bard's Outpost Crew Command adds the ability to direct my outpost settlers in various jobs and actions, including growing things in my greenhouses and maybe occupying certain pieces of furniture and whatnot that I've placed with Sweet Pea 704's mod. Again, don't at me. I don't have any actual outpost building experience yet, so this is my current logic as it stands. Finally, I'm wrapping this up with Real Light Starfield. And the reason why I'm adding real lights here at the end is frankly because Rabbit asked me to. And I strongly recommend whenever you download a creation, you read the whole thing. I know it's mind-blowing for some people, none of us, obviously, we're the cool kids, but some people don't like to do a lot of reading, and this might be a lot of reading to them. But there might be information in the description for the mod that is beneficial to you as a player who is using mods in your game. And it doesn't seem to say so right here, but in the actual description for the mod, when you look at it on the store page, it says load me last or as close to the bottom as you possibly can. Therefore, I took it at its word, and I have loaded it last. So there's a quick and dirty Bubbles general guide to a load order on the Xbox and Xbox for PC. It's the same exact thing as far as what's available in the creations menu.